In this Global Choices interview, where we focus on the softer side of insurance, we speak to Sandra Snowball, Head of Membership at the FIA, who faced the trauma of losing her home in a fire. Despite her industry knowledge, the experience tested her emotionally, physically, and financially. Sandra shares what it's like when theory meets reality, what support she received, what was missing, and what lessons we as an industry must take to heart. Sandra, thank you for your time, and it's lovely to chat to you today.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you to you and FAnews and the Global Choices team as well.
Yes, and as an industry colleague, I did not know about your story, so I am looking forward to hear more about that. So maybe take us back to the day of the fire. What happened and when did it happen?
Okay. Yeah, no, it's for those who are listening and are sharing in this video. I think those closest to me in the industry probably heard the story a few times, but this is not something you post all over your social media and advertise. It's something you deal with just in the moment. But it was back in November 2023, so Sunday the 19th to be exact. So I know exactly at about 1:30 in the morning. My daughter and I are home asleep, and I woke up to a sound that I at the time believed to be maybe one of the animals, one of the dogs in the house needing to get out of the property. And the second I opened my eyes, I could smell smoke, this heavy smell of smoke in our house. And I just realized something was not right. There was a glow in the house which shouldn't be there, and you could hear this cackle of this fire. So I grabbed my glasses, and I will specifically mention things like grabbing glasses, because when you have to replace that in your insurance claim and you do not have glasses, some of those things you just do instinctually. So I grabbed my glasses, ran out, and was faced with truly, I mean, your worst nightmare, two massive columns of smoke or flames in my study, which is our spare room. And thank goodness the fire started in neither of the bedrooms my daughter and I were in. And I think kick into some sort of crazy gear. I started screaming for my daughter, so there's a fire in the house, get out, get the animals. Which one of us grabbed cell phones and when, I have no idea, because there's the following sets of things happening like a blur. I instinctually started to think about how do I put out the fire, and started running for water, not realizing at the time I was dealing with an electrical fire, but I don't think my instinct would have made me do anything different. Or the panic, should I say, I don't know if I think it's panic. I started grabbing jugs of water, running it up and down the passage, and the first time I threw, I realized, oh, this is going to be very effectual. It actually even exacerbated things a little bit. And then I wanted to just see how much water I could throw there to stop the spread of the fire in that moment while you're making phone calls. And I think part of this was, my daughter has been well trained over the years in case of an emergency. What do you do? What are the things?
How old is your daughter, Sandra?
At the time, she was 17.
17.
Yeah. So, and in the middle of her matric exams. So she started phoning emergency services, found herself on hold. I went straight to our neighborhood watch telephone number. Now, that's something that I will talk to in this a lot, because I think that was a massive difference in the outcome of what happened. So I phoned them. They immediately started dispatching people within about 4 minutes. And I think the community that we serve or we speak to will appreciate the fact that the first person on scene was a breakdown driver. Yes, who arrives at our front door, because we had opened our big gates, and he arrived at the front door, and he kept saying, his repeated thing to me was, how many adults are on this property? Because my parents are also on the property as well. We've gotten them out of their flat. And he was just, you can see his a mentality of somebody who deals with emergency all the time. He said to me, get all your animals in the car. Get your cars out the driveway, park them down the road. So remove that equation from what's happening. And, from the time I opened my eyes to the time that the fire was out is probably about a 40 to 50 minute span, which is incredibly high speed. A lot of people will not going to have that sort of turnaround. But I do think the neighborhood watch was the differentiating factor there. And they just knew who to phone, exactly where we were, because it's a familiar area. Everybody sort of knows exactly where to direct traffic and where to go to. And yes, we found ourselves standing at 2 o'clock in the morning in our pajamas on the side of the road thinking, okay, well, now what? You know, that was the essence of what that day entailed for us, or that morning. Yeah.
And I think nothing can prepare you, right? You can think, when there's a fire ever in my house, this is what I will do, and this is who I will phone, and this is what I will grab, right? No, it doesn't happen that way. I'm
The
right,
brain
right?
doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Panic
Okay.
ensues first, Rionette.
Yeah. What were your immediate thoughts and emotions in the aftermath, knowing this is now, it's gone? What now? What was the first thing that you start thinking about?
You know, it truly is, it's incomprehensible, what you now need to, what you're facing. You know, my brother had come down in the middle of all of this, and you know, family is the people that you call on. All I had to do was say to him, the house is on fire, you need to come. And he was there as fast as the fire trucks. But as we were heading down there, my sister-in-law had organized this place for us to sleep, and we were in our pajamas. And it was that now what moment, like you're exhausted, you don't know what is coming next. And out of politeness, because I've been raised really well, there was no way I was going to contact anybody at 2 o'clock in the morning, because, I mean, you just don't. They're sleeping at home with their families. But by 5 a.m., my first message, and I've gone back to look at this ahead of this interview, was to my broker. Yes, he is a personal friend of mine, but our insurance has been with that brokerage, Lyle Morgan Associates, for many, many years. But at 5 a.m., I sent Brent a message to say, when you wake up, you need to phone me. We've had a massive fire in the house. No one is hurt, but I need you to tell me what next to do.
Okay.
You know, so I knew exactly that was the person, because what were we going to do next?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that by 7 o'clock, he had already been on the phone. By 11 a.m., we had an assessor appointed and on the property. And they were, you know, they were just realistic about what was going to come next, what was going to happen next, and really just outlay the set of plans that you've got to think about, because there's so much. It's just indescribable, the destruction. So you just have to have somebody to guide you in that moment and say, don't worry, these are the next 4 steps. Then tomorrow we're going to do these 4 steps. And I must say, the assessor that was appointed, Andrew McCaig, was just really empathetic and just understood, just to be direct, not to lead us up the garden path, tell us it's bad, but it's repairable. Don't panic. So yeah.
I wanted to ask, was the whole house burned down? Was it only parts? Was it everything down?
No, fortunately not. And, you know, this is an original old house. It was the first house in this road in Meadow-Ridge in Cape Town. It's built solidly, good solid external walls. And because of the quick response, the main house was quite severely damaged, but the flat on the side where my parents are, fortunately, was not damaged except for soot. But the heat, the intensity of the heat had cracked a lot of the internal walls of the house. So the entire roof had to be replaced. It was extensive, no way to stay on the property after that.
Okay. And the other quick comment I wanted to make, because I cannot help myself, is if you did not have a broker, a broker where you had actually a very good relationship with, and you've been with that broker for a long while, it's not one insurance that you change every year because you get a better premium. How different would your story have been in your mind?
I really don't know. And I think that's a good lesson out of this is if you don't have a relationship with your broker, number one, you should have. If you don't have a broker, you need to know where is that, who do you start to contact? Who's the first point of call? And understand and prepare yourself for that, because I cannot imagine how overwhelming that moment would have been. And you'll hear this word over and over in this. Overwhelmed is exactly what it was. So, I mean, it's literally what I do for a living. I advocate for the use of brokers and financial advisors.
100%.
And for this exact purpose, I would have been extremely lost in that moment.
And it would have been a really bad story if you didn't have that broker and that relationship
Correct.
as that person at the FIA, right?
Exactly.
Luckily, the story ends good. So,
Yes.
Sandra, from a practical standpoint, what were the first things you needed to deal with? Shelter, clothing, communication? Just take us through a little bit of that, maybe first week, few weeks, few first days.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, communication, I mean, that's a massive thing for all of us. And I mean, you start to think my cell phone, we don't even know most of the numbers anymore. We used to be able to retain all that in our head. That's all in my phone. I mean, my
Right.
diary, everything is sitting in that. So fortunately, it's also the method of communication in when you're in an
Yeah.
emergency. So we had them physically in our hands. And I will say my very clever child, after everything had happened, went back into the house with the fireman and actually was allowed to, then he guided her through. She went and fetched my work laptop and her laptop. And so we were quite lucky to retrieve a number of those items that were in our bedrooms. Unfortunately, not in the study because she was writing the trick.
Okay.
Our normal setup was a little different. So, you know, when you add up all of the little things that point to a lucky outcome,
Yeah,
all those tiny things need
100%.
to be taken into effect. So, at least from that perspective, we were covered on a communication perspective. And then, you start thinking, well, where are we going to stay? I mean, my brother and his family and my sister-in-law very kindly put us up, but they've got a full house. And I
Yeah.
mean, we were 4 adults, 3 dogs, 1 cat, 1 budgie. Suddenly you've got to like put everybody somewhere. And we were 2 weeks out from December in Cape Town. And the realism was then, how are we going to find a place? But so we were lucky enough, temporary measures. We've got friends and family. It's where you really have to. I'm one of those people, I suspect, like yourself and a lot of the people in this industry, you do for yourself. You get on with it
Yeah.
and you don't really ask for favors.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But this is the moment you lean into all your friends and family. And I will tell you that with people coming in and the assessors, the brokers, and that also outlining things like interim payments, because suddenly it's, well, my colleague actually said to me early on today, she said, I remember you saying, oh, I don't have any pajamas. It's just, I don't have this. I don't have anything actually. But it was that silly thing that I'd said to her, well, I don't even have pajamas. And then, getting these interim payments, having it all explained so you can at least start buying basics while you start to think about how you're going to settle into shelter. And I mean, we just had to move forward. As I said, my daughter was writing the trick. This was on the Sunday. Monday morning, I drove her to her next exam because if she missed one, it's much more difficult.
The
So
implications are
practically, you just
huge.
you just
Yeah.
step into the next step and you move forward. Life has to go on. Yeah.
How did your insurer, okay, you have got your broker and he was like April away. How did your insurer respond once you logged claim? And what kind of support did you receive during those early days? I know your most contact is with a broker, but
Yeah.
just maybe from the insurer's perspective.
So I think 100% right. I mean, I did deal with mostly with the broker and the assessor. And I mean, we had 2 brokers. We've got a unique setup on our property. And actually, not that unique for South Africa. My parents are on the property, my daughter and I, 2 separate but connected households. But I will say, we were well insured. So I'll get to that in this conversation. But, there was very little argument. The broker had control of the situation, spoke to the insurer. There was no issue. They said, go ahead, do what you need to do. We're happy with the assessor. Just make everything happen. Do the interim payments. There was never any delays or me sitting wondering what is happening next. And I mean, it's a massive undertaking. And, they also immediately advised about, Hollard said, SRT is going to come out. They're a salvage recovery company. Within the first 3 days, they were on the property, packing up everything, bubble wrapping what could be salvaged,
Wow.
and they could take away to look. And you just think there's an entire industry just built around these disastrous situations. But for the people that are there, they are clearly trained. I mean, they're well trained. They understand that this is a trauma situation. They were very straightforward, simplistic. They explained everything well.
Wow.
And as I said, for me, a very clear thing is when you are so in that moment dysfunctional and thrown all over the show, to have very clear guidelines from the insurer, who was not standing in the way of saying, oh, we first want to look at this. You know, the
Nice.
SRT was there, the quantity surveyor arrived, the assessor was on board, everything happened, and they did know they had to push hard initially, and then there was going to be a December break. So regardless, we weren't going to get that house rebuilt starting in December. We were going to have to wait. So everybody pulled their weight and did what they were meant to do in that
That's
situation.
awesome. And you mentioned the empathy part, and that you really felt that with most of the parties.
Yeah, which is it makes me very proud.
Yes,
that
100%.
is the response.
No, 100%. Looking back, were there any gaps? We spoke about a lot of things, and it was mostly positive. But were there any gaps in your cover or misunderstandings about your policy that only became obvious once the claim process began? Because I mean, that can happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even for somebody that's in the industry, and they often say, you know, people that are in the profession that they represent are normally the ones that are not you know, you do
it's
everything
like the
for clients except for
child,
yourself.
that's the naughtiest child. Yeah,
Correct.
That story. Yeah.
That one, yes. And I think there's a lot of presumption things. You know, it's like oh, that's so obvious. Of course that would be covered. But things that I actually did not know that were actually covered. I mean, it's silly to say, but I didn't even realize that we had this, you know, the policy extended, go and rent a property. You need to rent something that is similar to what you currently set up. I mean, we had 2 separate households. And all of this was explained and outlined. I mean, for what we have, I mean, it's old property in Meadowridge. We could have gone to a luxury house, but I was like, I just want to be in proximity to a house in the right area. And, you know, that was something it's obvious that, yes, that would kick in, but you don't actually really know until somebody says it to you. There was trauma counseling. So again, I wouldn't have gone to read the policy wording for that in particular, but the broker then said, are you aware? This is what's available to you. You can go for trauma counseling as a family as a result of the fire as well, which was fantastic to know, because again, it's the mental wellness, it's the empathy thing that comes in. It's actually built into the policy. So I think those are things that I'm you know, just so happy that there were those options. And the interim payments, as I mentioned, it's obvious there's a claim, so interim payments are good to put into play. And then just Rionette, to really outline how tragic this could have been, or where we could find ourselves now. 2 years prior to the fire, we were underinsured. With this dual household, my dad actually had most of the responsibilities around that. And believe it or not, with me being in the industry, he had the responsibility. A lady from the broker's office said to me, I need you to take a look at that policy. I'm uncomfortable with the values on it. And I did. We amended it and increased it significantly. But we would have been horribly, horribly underinsured in this moment. So I think the message is always got to be clear. Underinsuring, I mean, you're just agreeing to take a percentage of the loss for yourself. And I don't know if anybody actually takes that really on board and saves for that eventuality. That's what the insurance is for. But if you want to save some money in that moment, it'll come back to you. So those were some of the clear things. I think I didn't understand all the intricacies of the policies, but they seemed obvious once they were offered and said, this forms part of the policy.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
It makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
I know. It's a horrific story, but it had a good outcome. I don't think everybody gets the same outcome, unfortunately.
No, 100%. What was the toughest part? We've touched on that, but the toughest part for you when you think back emotionally, physically, and financially? Interim payments, did you have the money to do the interim payments? There were interim payments from the insurer, but from a financial, from an emotional and a physical point of view, what for you was the most challenging, and maybe for your whole family for that matter?
Right? Well, the emotional toll, I mean, I don't think I can ever outline for you what it is. It just, we are not over it. Absolutely not. We have a level of paranoia in our house. You know, when we have
100%, I
fire
can
season in
imagine.
Cape Town, yeah, we will
Yeah.
shoot outside. Oh, can you smell that? I don't know how long that's going to take to go away, if ever, but it makes you more cautious in
Yeah.
some ways. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I was naturally risk averse. I'm way worse than what I was before. You know, I think people talk to me about gas in the house. You know, why don't you convert to gas? I'm like, absolutely not. Um, you know, and
Don't make me
I have a
scared. I've got gas.
no. That's, as I say, that's a level of paranoia that you get to.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I've got a beautiful old anthracite heater in my house, and
The
people have
one
come and said,
behind
"Oh,
you.
yeah, not in this house." Please note my fire. That's as close as I'm coming to a fire in my house. Yeah, but I won't like that thing. I'm like, guys, at this point, I'm not even 2 years on yet. So it takes time. There's a healing process. I think, you know, from a financial point of view, because we were so well insured, we're okay from that perspective. It didn't really hurt us financially. And I think I put a lot of work into looking at the budgets. What once the builders were appointed, sitting carefully with them and outlining. And then I had basically a second job. Every evening, I trawled every website. Every weekend, I visited every lighting warehouse, builder's warehouse, tile tour, you name it, to find the best deals, because there's always something in your house you would like to have done. And I had a long list. This was an old house. Um, and I've managed to get all of that done. So if you work well with
Yeah.
financially in
Just
that
because you were money
moment,
conscious and well aware
very
of. Yeah.
correct. So
That's yeah,
it's
that's cool.
it's a big aspect of that. And then,
Yeah.
you know, I think because my family came out unscathed, I'm the only one who's got one scar because I fell in the water when I was throwing in the passageway. So I caused my own injury.
Yeah.
So, but everybody got out. Our animals got out. But I cannot imagine if you lose somebody or even your animals in a fire, that level of trauma must escalate exponentially. And I really, you know, from that perspective, I think we were exceptionally lucky that I woke up. I mean, we were all on the property, all asleep. I didn't know that you can't smell smoke in your sleep, by the way. There's a little something I'll share. Yeah.
No asthma.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of people die of smoke inhalation in their sleep, because the brain doesn't actually recognize the smell of smoke until you've woken up.
I did
So
not know that. Okay.
yeah,
That's
very
interesting.
interesting little
Yeah.
things that you suddenly, oh wow, I wasn't aware either.
You're going to make us all paranoid now, Sandra.
Sorry. If I can help somebody in this message, then
Yeah.
good, my job is done.
Yeah, no, 100%. Talk to me about the importance of mental well-being support and the care during and after to manage the psychology of the trauma experience. Like you said, you were lucky in some way
Yeah,
that there was no loss of life. Um, but the importance of that, even on your level where there was no loss of life.
correct. Yeah, no. So that offer of trauma counseling, I mean, in retrospect, I actually, I think I should have insisted on it for my daughter, especially, who was, you know, going from school to post school is a whole thing on its own.
Yeah.
Writing matric is a whole thing on its own. And then having your
Absolutely.
house burned down. She turned 18 3 weeks later. I think that was where I really should have pushed a little bit, but there's so much happening in that moment that you just keep pushing through. I mean, South Africans are very good at that. You know,
Yes.
we'll just go on
Yes.
market plan. And you know, I've got a great support system. I mean, my sister-in-law was actually the one who found us the house that we ended up renting for 6 months and having to stay in. So, and it was close. It was exactly between my house and my brother and sister-in-law's place. So we were in proximity. We were well cared for and looked after. And I think there's a big part of, if we lost the house completely and we weren't able to rebuild, the house has got a semblance of what was, and then there's new. So there's healing in going back to the house. We moved back in, it's just over a year now that we moved back. And, my mother's putting the garden back together, and it's, everything's coming back slowly but surely. We haven't
Nice.
rushed the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's part of it. I spend more time at home. It's a sanctuary. So that is part of the mental well-being and the healing. And then, I mean, I will say I probably did get a little bit of VIP treatment, just because I have an association with the industry. This has been my
Yes.
life for 20 years, or maybe a little
Yes.
bit more. But there were people I had never met before who didn't know who I was. And as I said to you, they all have been well trained. The JBS building team, the foremen that were on site, their team were clean and neat. They
Sure.
stuck to their deadlines. And that was Hollard's, from the insurer's perspective, who said, this is the builder we're going to be using. So props to everybody along the line, that all of these aspects helped. I mean, I can't imagine also, had there been somebody incompetent in that chain,
Yeah.
had there been a builder who was just, we don't really care about the
Yeah.
quality and that sort of thing, it would add to the trauma. So all of those things all come together. And I think that's a big part of this industry, is understanding all the chains link together, and can leave somebody, you can have the best broker on this end, and then you hit these damages or other things over here. It just will undermine all that work as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's really the importance of having the right ecosystem in place. So kudos obviously then to Hollard, who have made sure that they do give you the best service providers, because we've heard so many stories from brokers who complain um, around claims, and it
Yeah,
is the service providers. They have a lot of challenges with them. So that inevitably brings a bad name to the broker and to the insurer and to the industry per se, just
correct.
because service providers, and that's a process that the insurer needs to really manage very tightly, and obviously that's something that they've really done very well. So
Yeah.
very positive experience.
100%.
Yeah.
As we were laughing earlier on, my job would be a lot more difficult and awkward if this had all gone badly wrong.
100%, 100%. I think the bigger message to the brokers and their clients, I wanted to give it now, but I think the most important thing coming out from this conversation is the importance of having a relationship with the right people,
Yes,
having networks, um, and for the insurers, making sure that they use the best service providers. And small things, like you said, from the broker side that communicated things to you that you
yes,
never knew about. So that communication, and then the story around the underinsurance, how
correct.
critical is
Oh,
that? So
very scary.
yeah, from a
Yeah.
broker's perspective, I think that's something that sometimes that slips up a lot. That's something
Um,
so small. But I think underinsurance is a much bigger thing than we realize.
uh,
Agree.
correct, definitely. Um,
Your
yeah,
last message. Your last message
last
to
thing.
the
Okay, so
industry, to the broker.
I think, in terms of, uh, we know brokers, there's a lot going on. The cost of doing business is massive, but I see a lot of brokers using their social media to help their clients and remind them of things like, well, you're going on holiday, have you considered? There's a chip on your windscreen, do you know how to handle it? And there are a couple of maybe extra things that could be handled in there. And I think for me, some of my takeouts are here, which I try to highlight, will giving you the feedback, is about that neighborhood watch. There's a
Oh,
whole
yes.
risk mitigation tool at your disposal. They know who to phone, how they can turn around much faster. So I think if you've got a neighborhood watch in your community, and also have brokers remind people of that, say in your renewal, are you a member of? Have you considered? Do you
That's
understand
a
what's
good point.
available in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Um, digitize your important documents. I was absolutely fastidious about keeping that box of documents that you grab in the event of an emergency. Unfortunately, that box was exactly where the fire started.
Oh,
So
no.
we lost everything. So please digitize your important documents. I was failed to do that, but maybe that's another thing the industry can build in as a that constant reminder. And then I would say, touch your multi-plugs in your house. All of this could have been avoided if I had understood that when you put your hand on a multi-plug and it is hot, that is a sign of failure within the multi-plug.
Oh, really?
Throw it away. Yes, that's exactly what the fire chief said to me. He said, if there's the one thing I'm going to tell you about is make sure that you touch the multi-plugs in your house. Share that story with other people. Touch those. If they're hot, they're not working correctly. They shouldn't be. So buy reputable brands. And then, yes, I think the last thing, especially in the current financial climate, very clearly and easily explaining to the consumers under insurance and how it works, how that average will be applied, and how damaging that could be to getting you and your family back on your feet. I
What
think
the
that's,
consequences are.
yeah, as simple as they can possibly explain it. I think that's the sort of thing that would have really, it just is that next little learning curve for everybody.
Yeah. Sandra, thank you so much for sharing your story.
My pleasure.
I'm so glad that yours is a positive story that we can share.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few very, very important comments that you've made, a few very important reminders. So I hope that our audience have listened to this. We are such an important part of this economy. We play such a big role. So let's make sure that our clients just have that same positive experience than what you had.
Absolutely. And yeah, all the best to everybody. And may this not happen to anybody else.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you, Global Choices, for allowing us to share stories like this, to say, how can we do things better, or even more, even, there's not a word betterer, even. Maybe so.
Well, more effectively.
Yeah, more effectively. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Renette.